Hey, Shawn here from SpeedCubeReview.com. Thank you for listening to episode 84.
Hi, this is Daniel Goodman.
Dylan Wang from JPerm.
Ian Scheffler.
Shiva Mansur from India.
This is Alex from Z3Cubing.
What's up, guys? This is Jaden McNeil from Australia, and you're listening to the Corner Cutter Podcast.
That's right, welcome to the Corner Cutter Podcast. Podcasting since 2014 and cubing since 2015. I'm your host, Josh, and this is the most consistent speed cubing podcast dedicated to entertain and educate you with in-depth conversations with cubers from all across the sport. My website is thecornercutterpodcast.com, and thank you so much for joining me today for episode 84. As you heard in the intro, today's guest is Shawn Boucké from the SpeedCubeReview YouTube channel and SpeedCubeReview.com. Today we are talking about the CubingUSA Nationals 2019. He attended this event, so I'm bringing him on not only to get his perspective, but to do a Nationals wrap-up show. So if you didn't attend the event, you can know what happened there. There were plenty of world records, other fun stuff as well, and we cover it all today in our discussion. So I hope you stick around for the whole thing. If you have any feedback or want to add your thoughts if you attended Nationals, feel free to reach out. My email address is josh@thecornercutterpodcast.com, and you can even send in an audio message by going to the website thecornercutterpodcast.com/feedback. U.S. Nationals was held this year in Baltimore, Maryland, so on the East Coast, from August 1st through the 4th, and it was at the Baltimore Convention Center. Patrick Ponce took the title for 3x3 National Champion, and I'll have the link in the show notes to the U.S. Nationals website where you can see all the national champions in the other events. So I think that's all the background you need. Let's jump into today's discussion. Hey Shawn, thanks for joining me again on another episode of the Corner Cutter Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be back.
So first thing, what was your initial reaction when you walked into the venue? Who did you see first? What was there?
Well, okay, so that was my first time ever at Nats, and so I flew to Baltimore, and actually the first thing I saw at the convention center was BronyCon. I'm not going to talk too much about that because that was actually they were great. It was fine, but that was the first thing I saw. Once I went through there and I got to where the cube was, the cubers were, it was much more packed than I thought it was going to be that early in the day on Thursday. But I believe the staff competition was still wrapping up. So I just immediately walked over to the table where there was JR Cuber, there was Just Keep Cubing, Dana Yee was there. There was just like all these people that I was like, hey, I recognize these people. I'm going to go talk to them. So I was immediately jumping right into, kind of just almost a surreal experience of meeting people who I feel like I already know, even though I've never actually met them.
Mm-hmm. And same for the people you met as well, because since you're on YouTube, most people knew you as well, right?
Yeah, and it was kind of weird sometimes where I didn't always know who knew me or who didn't know me, or like probably the most interesting one was I talked to Max Park's parents, and they knew me, and they were saying they watched some of my episodes or some of my channel videos, which blew me away because I'm like, wait, you're watching them? And he's like, his dad was like, oh, not the tutorials, but yeah. And I was like, so that was sort of a really, I like the second vlog I made about Worlds went through my realization of just the impact that I've sort of added in the community. And it was a really, really great experience. I'm trying to think of a word that wasn't great, of like a heartfelt experience that people actually know what this is. But yeah, me meeting other people though, and like, I had lunch with Mats Valk, and that was great. I got to really talk to Mats for a little bit about that right before they did the finals.
Wow, that's nice. Yeah, having such an impact on the community. You said, yeah, I watched your day 2 vlog.
Yeah, I called it Reflections, I think. So I was like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Before that, you were saying that people like would say, thanks for doing your videos, or I like watching your videos. Could you explain that?
Yeah, so, you know, a lot of times people come up and they'll be like, oh, I like watching your channel. And they'll be like, oh, thank you. But suddenly I'm around people who from around the country, even around the world, who not only saying that, but are like, I really like your video on this and such. And they said a specific video, which meant a lot more because it wasn't just a general, hey, I like your channel. It was this one specific video really, I remember this one. I don't want to say it impacted me. I don't know how much it really impacted them, but that was because I really enjoy making the videos. Like I don't care so much how big the channel grows or where it goes. I just wanted to help people. I'm a teacher through my own education. Like that's what I always wanted to be. And so when people point out a specific thing that they remember, that means a lot to me.
Going back to the venue, how was it set up?
It was mainly just a big room. There was another smaller room that was used for fewest moves and I think feet and multi-blind, things that they had to be a little bit quieter for or just needed some other setup. But really it was just one giant room. There was 4 different stations. It was like blue, red, green, and orange, I believe. And that way they could be wrapping up one thing while doing another one. It was really well organized. I couldn't believe how well organized it was. Everything was on this big screen, so you could look up and see what events are going on at each station and then how long estimate until the next event starts. And then it almost never got behind. I think my 2x2 station got about 10 minutes behind, and that's the most out of the entire 4 days with that many people there is astounding. But yeah, it was honestly just like a giant room with a bunch of tables and chairs, and which was kind of nice because then you didn't have to really walk very far.
Yeah, I can see that. You mentioned staffing, and the people running it did a very good job. How do you think they managed to keep everything exactly on schedule and not like once one thing fell just a teeny bit behind, wreck the next event?
I have no idea. I'm thinking it was just a lot of pre-planning, knowing how long things take. It's probably a little bit different than a regular competition because you have to qualify for an event, so they know everyone is on average going to be below a certain amount of time. And that might have been organized also then by where people's times are, so they know like these people will probably average around a minute 20 on 5x5 or something, and they put those people there. And so it probably had a lot to do with that pre-planning stage of it, but also since staff was actually staffed, like the competition I went to last weekend, they needed judges. Anyone who was there, hey, come help us judge. But at Nats, they have judges already on staff, so they never have to look for people. That's just, they know where to be at what time. But yeah, it stayed really on schedule, and it was very impressive how well it stayed.
How did the texting notifications work?
Oh yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. So either I just glanced over messages and didn't see it until I was about halfway through the first day, and I saw someone say they got a text saying they're up. And I'm like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, text this number, your ID, which was kind of funny because I texted my ID, and it sent me a message back saying, "I'm sorry, I do not recognize this ID." And so it seemed like it was a person looking at it. And so I responded back. I was like, "It should be under this name." And it put, "I'm sorry, I do not understand." So I responded back again. "My name is this. The ID will be this." And I got the exact same, "I'm sorry, I do not understand." I'm like, oh, it's a robot. So then it hit me that I didn't send my WCID in all caps, which then suddenly it worked. But yeah, and it didn't give you a warning like, oh, you're going to be up in 10 minutes, but you suddenly got a text saying, bring your cubes up to station, or the blue station, or bring your cubes up to the orange station now for 3x3. And yeah, it just would send you a message. So if you really weren't aware of what's going on at what time, you would get that message, be like, oh, I have to go do something now.
How long after putting your cubes on the table to getting called up for your first solve? What was the time in there?
It was pretty fast. I would say just like a normal competition. And the moment they put on the table, they went to the scramblers, and there was, again, the scramblers were set so they didn't have to hunt for people. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't any long wait or anything, especially because they had different stations. There was only probably about 16 of us or maybe 12 at each station at a time. So usually you're either just waiting for it to get scrambled or just already at a spot solving.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's still a good idea to keep a good eye on the schedule so you can warm up for an event if needed.
Yeah. If you were just waiting for those tacks, you had to like run around. So being aware was always helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you think the event schedule was structured? Was it a good variety and breakup throughout the events? Like not just focusing on big cubes or that kind of stuff?
Definitely worked really well. I mean, like the first day I had one-handed and FMC. The second day I think I had 4x4 and it's just 4x4 and FMC. And then the third day I had 2x2, 3x3. The only thing I didn't like was where FMC was, but it's either you have to have it in the early morning or in the evening, or have it throughout one whole day, which I prefer the throughout one whole day sort of situation. The problem with that, though, is that you would have an entire day of just these weird events, and they could have done where it's like the more weird events or smaller ones on Thursday, like maybe FMC and Big Blind or things like that. And that way people would just have to be there Friday through Sunday. But I think they wanted it where it was a full 4-day event. So it was all spread out. Yeah, because since it was in the evening, I was burned out every time. And throughout all 3 of my solves, which I think I'm getting a little ahead of schedule here. But yeah, all 3 of my solves ended up not doing so well just because I felt burned out every day and I just wanted to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What time did you finally get back to your hotel?
So it was the first night I didn't do anything afterwards. I didn't go out to eat or anything. So I got back around 7 o'clock, I think. But then the next couple nights, I either went out to dinner or hung out a little bit. And I think it was Friday night when there were seminars, and a few people presented. So those ended around 9 o'clock. And by the time I got back, it was a little after 10, which then I had to edit some videos. So I didn't sleep till even later than that. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. I didn't like party till 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you still got a good 6 or 7 hours of sleep at least.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I wasn't like running on 2 hours each day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's not that fun being tired when you're trying to enjoy the last couple days.
No, well, that's even the first day. By the time I woke up and I flew to Baltimore, and one-handed started at 4 o'clock, although my heat wasn't until like 5:30. So by the time I woke up and actually did that, I'd been up for like 13 hours before I did my first official one-handed solve. And that was a bit rough. So that was the only time where it was really like, oh my God, I need to do something right now. Mm-hmm. I need to get some official solves in. Yeah.
Speaking of travel, any incidents or funny things that happened in there?
Not really. I mean, there was the first time I'd flown in like 18 years, and not any reason of like not being or like being afraid of flights or anything. I would always drive everywhere or take trains everywhere. So it was the first time on a plane, and being at the airport going there in Detroit, they took some of my cubes to investigate them to figure out what they were, because under X-ray cubes look really funky. And yeah, especially if they have magnets. Yeah, so you just have like these 6 rods and 48 magnets sitting there. They look kind of weird under the X-ray. But coming back was fun because the plane actually got delayed, and so I just got to sit and chat with other cubers who were coming from the event and talk for a little bit. So that was actually a lot of fun, just waiting for the plane, talking to people after the whole event was done, which seems like the weirdest thing to say that was the most fun, that my plane got delayed.
Moving on to more of your solves. What event did you hope to do the best at, or your biggest goal?
Well, I hadn't done any official solves since I think January. It felt like it was almost a year, but it was maybe about 7-8 months, or less than that. But it was around January. So really, all of the events, I'm like, I can do better on all of these, and I really didn't. 4x4 was the only one where I was hoping to get a sub 50 average, sub 50 average, and I got a 50.4. So I'm like, okay. Yeah. I was like, it's not bad, but it was there. Fewest moves, I crashed and burned with that. My first solve, a lot of people struggled with the first solve, and I found a really easy 25, not an easy, but I found what could have been an easy 25, but I spent about 10 minutes trying to figure out why this one alg I was using wasn't working. And when I finally gave up on that alg, I had 5 minutes left. I'm like, oh no, I need to just write something down. And I took a 30, which was still good, but not the 25. And then I ended up DNFing my second one because, again, I got kind of lost in my own notes. And so the third one, I didn't really care so much because I wasn't trying to get a mean. And I never even made a backup. And yeah, that was a bad idea because I DNF'd. So FMC sort of crashed and burned with that. 3x3, I had a lot of weird ones. Like, I had a solve that probably would have been my first sub 10-second solve. And when I inserted my final F12 pair, the edge wasn't with it anymore. Like, I thought I inserted it, and I go to do OLL. I'm like, oh, the F12 edge is still in the top layer. And like the second solve after that, I inserted the final F12 pair, and the edge was there this time, but flipped. I'm like, what am I doing? So I think being burned out and just, maybe it was just a coincidence that I just did really weird things at that one. But I think 4x4, the average, was the only one that I really broke any PB with. The rest were just worse than I normally would have done. Nothing atrocious, but just worse than I normally do.
Yeah. What about some events that you don't really focus on as much, but you still had fun competing in?
Actually, I don't think that, because you had to qualify for each event. So the only ones that I really did were ones I practiced. Okay. I think I did qualify for Pyraminx, but I didn't do it. Back, just a few years ago, my thought was like, I'm going to do every event. I want to try to do every single one. But now I've gotten to a point where I feel like I don't want to do it if I'm just going to be wasting time. So like Scube, I could do Scube and do okay because I know how to do it. But since I don't practice it ever, instead of going and being like, oh no, I'll get a 12-second average and they'll be good. I kind of want to be like, unless I'm practicing it, I don't want to go up there and just, I could rather judge or help out, which, there wasn't judging at this competition because they were set. But, so I've kind of moved away from trying to do everything, just even if I don't care so much about it. Although I did say I wasn't ever going to do clock, and I literally solved my first ever clock last weekend. So maybe I'll start doing clock. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. Moving on to world records. What world records or NARs did you witness? Let's start with those.
So almost immediately after I got there, I heard everyone starting cheering and clapping, and Max had broken I think it was a 6x6 or a 7x7 world record. I can't remember which one it was.
7x7
one of the
was. in the morning.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so he broke that and everyone's cheering. But since the venue was so huge, I didn't even know Max was competing at the time. I guess, I could just be watching where Max is at all times, but, I don't want to just do that. And so I saw the aftermath of everyone cheering. I didn't see feet. I didn't see, there was another thing, but for the blind, the 15.5 second blind, that was during finals, and that was ridiculous. So, because we're all just sitting there watching the finals happen, and we're all supposed to be quiet during it, and immediately, like, he's doing the solve, and he does it like a 6-second memo, and I'm like, even me who doesn't watch too many people do speed blinding, I'm like, this is good. And when he got it, the entire audience made a bunch of sound afterwards for just like a 2 or 3 seconds. And I was talking to a delegate afterwards who was frustrated that the audience made a bunch of noise because, like, they should know better. And I kind of responded with, like, yeah, I know better. And I think I still did like a what sound. And because it wasn't where they had to quiet everyone down afterwards. It lasted like 2 seconds of people going, oh my God. And then it quieted down. So I think people's reactions were not voluntary. They were just shocked by what had happened. And so that one I witnessed, and that was ridiculous. I forgot who it was. They got
MacLeod.
Around the same time.
Oh.
No, someone else got like a 22 second, or would have been like a 22 second solve, but messed up on edges. And they're saying they think it was because of people making noise and they forgot something, but they forgot to ask for an extra.
Oh.
So, yeah, I mean, that happens, but I think people's reactions were just involuntary, and it was just a really crazy solve.
Yeah. It was Max Hillard who got the 15.5 blind single. Yeah, so people were probably like, whoa, he got a little bit. Oh, I'm supposed to be quiet. So that's probably... Yeah,
I mean, the competition over the past weekend, Stanley Chapel did a 19-second blind solve, and the audience, again, they didn't make any noise afterwards. It was like half a second of, what? Because no one was expecting to see that fast of a solve at just like a local comp. Because a lot of times people even don't know what people average. So it was the same sort of idea. Yeah, people just made a reaction to it, and then didn't want to make sound. They weren't trying to make a sound, but it just happened.
Juan Pablo got the Megaminx Average. Was that in finals?
That was, I don't think that was in finals. If it was just before I started watching it, but I thought it was like round 1 of it, actually.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, that was the other one I couldn't remember.
Yeah, so the new Megaminx Average is 31.70.
Oh, that's going to be sub 30 soon. Someday.
But do you know what Megaminx he is using?
I want to just guess that it's the Galaxy. I honestly don't know many people who are not using that. Either the V2 or like the V2 LM, the one's a little bit larger. I've got to assume it's one of those two. The only person who I've seen, this was back in that about a year ago. Drew Brads was using like the Shangsha Aurora. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, I like it. I'm like, okay. But yeah, I've got to assume it's a Galaxy. I'm just guessing, but it's got to be that.
What do you think about Stanley Chapel's 5.15 clock average, the NAR?
Since I don't really know much about clock, I have no reaction to that, really. Like, I didn't really know what was fast or what isn't fast with that. So I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now that I might be getting into clock, it's a little more intriguing. But yeah, clock is like, some people are going to be mad about this. I'm a little surprised clock is still an event. I'm like waiting for the WCA to be like, this is not a twisty puzzle. Let's ban it.
Yeah.
Do it. But yeah, that's actually, clock is one thing that it's almost a little bit like feet, where when the feet one got broken again, I was like, oh, that's cool. That's a thing.
Yeah. I guess Stanley is just known for blind stuff, so seeing him get a record in clock was interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people knew he was like that fast, but
Yeah,
Maybe
I
it's
definitely didn't. I just knew about blind.
Yeah, his blind stuff just really covers up that. Will Callan got the NAR 2x2 average. That was cool that he took that back. And he was featured on the podcast last year as well.
Yeah, I remember that. I think that was during finals that happened, because he was not on the tables closer to the middle. He was not in like the top 2 after going into the final round. And so he was off to the side, and his times were not displayed either on the big screen. So I was just hearing people whisper, talk about like, oh my God, he got another like such and such time. And I was like, I couldn't really even see who they were talking about off in like the corner of it. So yeah, I kind of wish it was displayed a bit more with that one, or there was some way to see it more. I mean, if you were watching that person specifically, it'd be easier. But there was 16 people to try to watch do 2x2, and that goes by so fast. You just I think Rami was one of the people that were actually displayed, and can't remember who the other person was. But yeah, so that was another one that was really interesting, but it was hard to follow.
And Will Callan ended up being the 2x2 national champion, so that was great. He was able to pull that off as well.
Yeah, he actually, one of the seminars he did, and I think he talked about how he has not made the final round or podium or something in like 3 years. And then suddenly he ends up winning it like the 2 days later. So it was really interesting, really nice that he was saying how he can do 2x2, but he's just the past few years, he, at least if I'm remembering correctly, has struggled to make podium.
Yes, he was.
So winning's definitely podium.
Yeah. Yeah, he was talking about that in the interview. I'll have the link to the interview in the show notes as well. But he was talking about how before this past year, he really wasn't able to calm down his nerves enough to get some good solves in especially the final rounds or the semifinals and that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure last Nationals he +2 to messed up on his final solve, which made him not get into finals. So
Ooh.
I'm sure he was pumped that he not only got into finals, but won it as well. Maybe he'll be back on the podcast soon. Now, moving on to 3x3 finals. Before this competition, who were you like? What were your guesses for the podium, or who would actually win it?
I think a lot of people just assumed Max Park. Like that, the fact that, who won Nats last year? Because I know he won 2 years ago and Worlds, but don't remember last year.
It was him. I'm pretty sure.
He did one last year as well? Yeah, so I think everyone was just expecting him to...
Well, no, it was Felix last year, but he still took the title, yeah.
Yeah. And so after actually the first 2 people that solved out of the 16, so it was Mats and I can't remember his name, it was like an 11-year-old that was competing, I had to go to the airport because I didn't know how long it was going to take me to check in. And so I was watching everything through the live stream, and I didn't realize he was like 9th going in after like the round before that. And it was really interesting watching the finals because everyone was doing okay. Like no one was doing really exceptional. Everyone was getting mid 7-second averages, which for some people, you know, that's good. That's average. I think I was talking to Rami afterwards, and he was saying, he's like, yeah, I was actually did what I would normally average, if not slightly better. So, but for the people watching, it always felt like there was all these mistakes that were making it where no one was just flying ahead. And it was really interesting going into like the 5th or 4th seed, and you're like, it's still anyone's game. Anyone could still win this. There's not one person who just did insane. And then we got to the final 2, Patrick Ponce and Lucas Etter. And that was kind of the best finish with it because they both did really exceptional in the final round of it. Especially Lucas Etter getting, what was it, like a 5.4 solve or something at the very...
5.8.
Yeah, the final solve of Nats being the best of that round as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely nice to top that off.
Yeah, it was just an exciting 16 because you didn't know what was going to happen next. You weren't just waiting for one person to walk up and blow the rest of the competition away.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I guess this kind of shows, too, that would you say the field is kind of evening out a little bit? I mean, I know Felix and Max are still overall faster than everybody else, but in competition, everybody's really tight in that 7-second range.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even just looking at Worlds, that both Felix and Max, neither of them made podium for Worlds. And the three people who did, I mean, I know Sebastian and, oh my God, my brain just left me.
Philip,
yeah, that they've been doing this for a while, and seeing them both on the podium together at Worlds was great. I'm really bad with names. There's the kid from the Philippines that's not Leo, who is solving with a Rue. That a lot of people are like, who is this other person? And did Juliet Sebastian, was she in the top 16? I know she podiumed in OH. I think she was in the top 16. I think it was like the first time in a long time there was a female cuber in the final round. Just seeing all these people that are all really fast. And when I talked to Felix a couple years ago after Worlds, he was saying that he was the oldest person in the final 16, which, you know, I don't think of Felix as being that old, but just, yeah, all these people who are younger and have been in cubing since, you know, just as long, if not a little bit less, but are younger than Felix, are now picking up speed. And it's really interesting. Things are kicking off again with a whole new crew of really fast solvers.
you mentioned presentations a little bit earlier. Could you like brief over what each one was about and which ones you liked the best?
Yeah, so there were 4 presentations. Actually, I thought about doing a presentation myself on either memorization techniques, because that's literally what my project was for my master's research. I mean, it's memorization of music, but you know, the concepts could transfer over, or practice techniques, but I didn't want to carry my violin and put it on the plane and all this other fun stuff. So maybe another time. But yeah, the 4 presentations, there was the 2x2, that one, it was Will, and I think, I can't remember the other person. I need to have all these names written down. But it was why 2x2 is relevant, or it was a funny name. It was like why 2x2 is not a bad event or something like this. There was one on stats, on statistics for the cube, just interesting numbers, and one thing that I'm still having trouble wrapping my head around, even though math is like my thing, is the difference between something being statistically different or statistically relevant? No, I can't think of the word, where there's a difference, a statistical difference. There we go. As opposed to there being an actual difference. Like, it was talking about one of them with the 4th solve was most often, I think, the fastest. And it was like, it was a large percentage more, but there wasn't a statistical difference, which I don't quite understand that, which I still need to just maybe read up more on it. There was...
Do you remember who did that one?
I'd have to look at the schedule. I could probably pull that up, and I will slowly look that up while I talk about the other ones. There was one, the very last one was Sarah Strong, doing it on teaching cubing through new educational techniques or ideas. And that was actually a really good one, because as a teacher myself, knowing it was talking about concepts of how to teach someone the cube, but it went into how learning through YouTube as compared to learning in person and why that's very different. And I actually was looking for, I was finishing up my FMC tutorial, and I was thinking about adding a whole new section at the beginning, talking about why learning something on YouTube might not work for everyone. But then I was like, this is just more stuff I need to add. But I was going to credit Sarah and talk about stuff that she talked about there. I just tried going to the CubingUSA site for my own schedule, and it says it's unavailable. So I think they took down that part. But let me see if the other schedule is still up here. Can't see it. Yeah, there was a third stall. Oh, yeah, there was also a fourth presentation on it was motivational speaking and how cubing has affected his life. So that was by Sam Richards, the motivational speaking through the Rubik's Cube. That was really interesting. I've talked to Sam before, and I've seen a presentation they did online. So it talks about his dealing with the cube and how it's helped him, and because he has part of it, his brain is missing, and I'm not going to go too much into detail because I'll probably describe it in a way that's not correct. But that was, I think all these might be on the live stream. I know that Damien was recording it. There's, Cubometrics, Fun Facts and I can never say this. Statistically Tested Answers About Cubing Psychology by Jared Astroff. The 2x2, and it's why 2x2 is not as pointless as you think. Will Callan and Luigi Soriano. And then, Sarah Strong, teaching people how to solve the cube using modern teaching principles. And I think that last one was one I was most interested in because that's kind of my thing.
Mm-hmm. Did you like the length of each seminar? It seems like 20 minutes would keep everybody engaged and keep everything interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of time to go through everything. If I'm doing a presentation, I know I often want a half hour at least to go through everything. But it was a good length of time where it didn't get too bogged down, and pretty much everyone who was there for one of the seminars stayed for all four of them, which was great. Mm-hmm. I was afraid it was going to start dwindling down because Sarah's didn't start till 8:30 or 8:15 or something like that. So it got kind of late in the day if you've been there all day.
Yep. Mm-hmm. What about any of the other unofficial things that were going on at the competition, like the parent team blind or the regions relay? Did you? So
those two I actually did not stay for. I was really interested in watching the team blind, but a friend of mine, we were planning on doing a sort of a different recording a video. I'm not going to go too much into detail with it, but ended up all the video got corrupted anyways. It didn't actually record, so that didn't work. But yeah, I didn't end up staying for it, which I wish I saw the team relays, because that's always an interesting thing. But I ended up going and doing something else that didn't end up panning out anyways.
Mm-hmm. How did your time go at the autograph booth? It looked like on your day 1 or day 2 and 3 wrap-ups, it looked like you had some fun there.
So I wasn't there signing any autographs. I mean, I did sign probably 100 different mats or cubes throughout the day. People just coming up to me. But yeah, I went up to the autograph booth because I'm not trying to get everyone's autograph. Every so often it's just starting. I had Sarah Strong sign a cube 2 years ago. But I was actually also planning on Lucas Eder to sign a Diane 2x2, and then I just missed it. I forgot to go up to him, and I didn't want to go up to him other times. But yeah, so I had Drew Brad sign a Pyraminx, Kevin Hayes sign a VCube6, and Matt Volk sign a Volk. And yeah, I wanted Kevin Hayes to sign a VCube6. Just, if you've seen that video from 8 years ago, I was wondering how he'd react to it, and he actually was cracking up with it, that he was thinking about, maybe I could use this for the final round of 6. But yeah, so that, and finally meeting Mats too. I'm trying to say Mats instead of Mats. I think it's supposed to be Mats. Because we had talked online, I forgot what for. I don't know if I was talking to him about being on the channel at some point, but he's the nicest person I've ever met. And actually, when I told him, I was like, "Oh, I'll see you at Nats," I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to get your autograph." He's like, "I'm gonna have to get your autograph." So I told him when she comes out with the Boucké cube, then he'll sign that one.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Who else did you get to meet that you were neither expecting to see or that you've been waiting to meet for a long time?
So I think I pretty much met everyone who I was hoping to run into. There was people who were there afterwards, like Anthony Brooks. I'm like, oh, I didn't expect you to be here. That we talked for a little bit. But I think Cubologist, Damien, was the one person who we have talked since I almost started cubing, because he had his channel just a little bit before I started mine. And at that time, we were both like the slightly older people who didn't really have a huge channel, but were just really excited about cubing people. And so I really wanted to talk to him, and he was working a lot. I mean, he had to work, because they had a shop open there. Then he was doing a lot of video recording. So he didn't have a ton of time to hang out, but that was kind of the one person I at least wanted to meet and talk to, because after all this time, we needed to actually shake hands.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anything else? Interesting stories? Something that happened that you want to share?
I mean, the venue was really nice. The city was great. There was a lot of, I've never been to a city that had this many electric scooters, and it was really weird just seeing all these like cubers and people just scootering around town. But everything flowed really well. I think it was just, it met what my expectations were. It ran really well, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you end up using one of the scooters?
I wish I did. I was almost afraid of it, because one person I know wiped out pretty bad on one, and like scabbed up his arm from it. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, maybe I'll pass on it. There was one night though, because I stayed in an Airbnb that was about a mile away, and it was late enough where I'm like, maybe I just take a scooter, but I didn't see any scooter between the convention center and the Airbnb. So I was like, okay, I'm just walking now. Mm-hmm. But no, I kind of wish I did. Although they're starting to appear other places. I was in Ann Arbor the other day, and they were there, and I've heard they're in Detroit now too. So I'm sure I will scooter one day.
Yeah, that's really expanding. They're really expanding that in a bunch of cities. So it sounds like a fun thing to just get around on.
Yeah, well, there was like a lot of times for people, it's just convenient too, because like there's ones that were by Uber, so you just open your Uber app and you like sign in, and you just take off. And the craziest thing for those who have never seen those, like I was like, where do you just drop them off? Like you literally get off and you just leave them wherever you stop. You don't have to like park them in a place. And then in the middle of the night, some truck comes around and picks them all up, charges them up, and drops them back off somewhere. Like, it's organized enough where you don't, like, there must be a bunch of security on that so people don't start taking them and just taking parts. But yeah, you just ride them wherever you want and just stop wherever you want, and that's it.
Yeah, that is cool. 'Cause you don't like nothing to take with you. You just can forget about it after you get your ride.
Yeah, although I think it says that you're supposed to wear helmets, and I saw 0 people wearing helmets, because you don't get a helmet on it. You have to like carry it around. So,
What about food or restaurants? Anything you got there that you liked?
Yeah, I tried to go to someplace different every time. There wasn't any Baltimore specific place I think I ever went. Like I went to Cheesecake Factory, went to Starbucks multiple times, went to Potbelly's. There's actually, it was the last day when I went to Subway with Mats, and that was, he had just found out he made 16th place. He made the top 16. So he was pumped, and a bunch of us were going to go to Olga's Pizzeria, and he came with our group. There was someone in the group who he knew, and he was like, "Oh, where are we going?" They're like, "Oh, Olga's." He's like, I want something healthier. And I'm like, what? He goes, "Oh, like Subway." And one person was like, "Are you saying you think Subway's healthy?" He was like, "Well, I want Subway." So he's like, "Anyone else going to get Subway with me?" And it was silent. And I'm like, "I'm going to go get Subway." And people are like, "You're just going because Mats is going." I'm like, "Yes, this is true." That is only why. So even though like it was just Subway, that was probably the most memorable one, because him and I just like sat outside and talked. And it was interesting. I talked to him about VLS and asking, what would be a good way of going about learning it. And he went through different things, and then he ends up telling me that he's like, really don't learn VLS. Learn some ZBLL if you're going to learn any of it, which was interesting coming from that. So I've really started to work on my COLL, and I'm going to actually learn some VLS now, although I've been afraid to do COLL because my times are a little bit worse doing it, even though I like doing it. But yeah, I mean, going on the first question about restaurants, it was nothing Baltimore specific, but convenient, at least nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. And going back to Subway, who said Subway isn't healthier? I guess it really healthier than pizza. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I
guess
will
it
call
really
him out. That
depends
was
what
that was Ryan DeLine.
put on it. If you skip the second vegetable section, then yes, that's probably
Which I'm pretty
correct.
sure Ryan does.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. I guess if you get meatball, it's basically a pizza.
That is why I should have convinced everyone to do that.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, actually, Subway serves pizza.
Oh my God, they do.
Yeah.
That was crazy when that came out. We were way off topic.
Uh-huh. Another kind of off-topic thing is your elbow okay from your day 2 video?
Oh, yeah, my elbow was fine. It was more loud just because the chair was loud. But no, that didn't really hurt much at all.
Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't a funny bone hit?
No, it was just a funny sound.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing though, and I'm kind of slowing down cubing a little bit right now, is, and I think part one, I'm wearing my watch a lot, which is, even though it's a small weight on your wrist, like after a while that can really cause issues. So I try to switch up my watch, but I'm playing my viola. I have 1 year left in my master's degree. And this upcoming semester is literally the semester where my main class is performing. So I have to do like a huge, like hour-long performance and all this other crazy stuff. And so suddenly I'm feeling like my tendons and everything are getting quite sore, just from playing viola for like 3 to 4 hours a day and then trying to cube. And so my elbow's fine, but I need to really watch what I'm doing because my forearm, my tendons, and my fingers are actually getting a little bit sore.
Yeah. Especially with extended phone or computer use as well. That can just add to the issue.
Yeah.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps up the Nationals 2019 overview. Shawn, thanks for coming on to share your experience, the fun stories you had to share, and where can people find your stuff? Where can they follow you on social media? Pitch that.
So everything is SpeedCubeReview. There's SpeedCubeReview Facebook page, Instagram. I've been really slow in getting an Instagram, but I've been like, I think I'm almost at my 1000th post. So there's a lot of things that I don't make YouTube videos on SpeedCubeReview, for on YouTube. So I'll just make a quick post on Instagram. Like I recently posted about how I polished and shined, my May long 4x4. So I had a matte finish and now it's polished, and people are like, how do you do this? And I've commented a little bit on what I'm doing, but I need to make a video on that. So that's sort of the, if you want a heads up on things that are going to be coming out or just secret things that I might not make a video on, go to Instagram, go to SpeedCubeReview.
Okay, sounds good. I had fun doing this. Thanks again, Shawn, for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you very much.
It's always fun having Shawn on the podcast. If you want to hear the first time he was on, it's episode 26, and I'll have the link in the show notes as well, so you can go back and listen to that. If you want to hear the background on his channel and how he got into cubing and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely recommend you listen to that as well. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Once again, if you have any feedback, the email address is josh@thecornercutterpodcast.com, or if you're listening on YouTube, just comment below. I always love hearing from you. So let's take episode 84 back to the scrambling table, and I'll talk to you again next week in episode 85 of the Corner Cutter Podcast. What do you think about Stanley Chappell's 15.15 clock average? That was
15.
the gnaw. I mean, not